Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler. Once again, I am going to be talking about my opinion on pipelines and the fact there will be at least one new pipeline being scheduled to build in Canada. Whether or not it gets built is another matter. I think it's highly likely one pipeline gets built, at the very least. Multiple reasons for it that I will continue to reiterate. This topic came up because last week, uh, Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta, came out and said, hey, the new bureaucracy that's being built to fast track national projects that are what does the law say that have to do with let me think here like national security and sovereignty and all that jazz, like nation building projects that you would do during a recession or depression, which obviously we're there in Canada. Like, just because the labor market hasn't completely broken does not mean you are not in a recession type scenario and dealing with depression economics in some certain circumstances. But she came out, she said, hey, look, we've got this proposed pipeline from Alberta to BC. It's the shortest pipeline, it's the fastest one we can build. And, the premier of BC came out and said, no, you're not going to do this. All the normal jazz that leftists are going to do, saying, this is an encroachment on, Aboriginal rights. This is our province. This isn't your province. And you had a whole bunch of people weighing in and blah, 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 saying, look, the pipeline's not going to happen. Carney's not going to make it happen. And even if it does happen, they just passed a law the previous week, or re-upped a law the previous week, extending caps on basically exports and carbon emissions for oil and gas. Specifically tanker emissions and stuff like that. And me, here, being the realist, looks at these people and thinks, how dumb are you? Like, you're here arguing, all right, that Carney is going to follow the law. When have the Liberals in the last... Actually, you know what? When is the federal government, all right, of Canada in, say, 30 years, so my entire lifetime, when have they legitimately followed the law with no, takesy backsies, or we totally pinky promised we followed the law here, where they were open, transparent, and said, no, we followed the letter of the law. We didn't follow the spirit of the law. We followed the letter, the spirit, whatever. We were totally above board in this situation. When has that ever happened? Okay? Like, right now, you have a globalist, leftist in charge of Canada, or at least as the prime minister. Okay? He doesn't care about the law. Never has, never will. Like, if he cared about law, treaties, and all that, when the tariff fight was going on, he wouldn't have put on tariffs on stuff that's supposed to be excluded by a treaty with the United States. Okay? Laws don't matter to these people. How many times do I have to say this? So if you're sitting there saying the only reason that this pipeline isn't going to happen is because the law, you're talking to people who couldn't give a fuck about the law. The only time they care about the law is when they're using it as a cudgel to bash in your face. Other than that, they don't care about the law. All right? And Carney, all right? Let's talk about who Carney is. Carney is a bankster, all right? most recently a central bankster, but he comes from the investment banking world. He worked at Goldman Sachs, for Jesus, for the love of Jesus. All right? He knows that when you are in the situation that Canada is in and you have oil and gas, you tap that shit to at least mitigate the damage that is being done to your country. All right? Like, this is economics 101 that they teach at school. Now, most of the stuff they teach at school about economics is completely wrong. Absolutely, especially when they get into money. They have no fucking clue. But this is like basic level, how do you deal with a national economy stuff that is mostly right. Even the MMT people can get this right, all right? So he knows this. This is ingrained in him. Like, even as a central bankster, they know this, all right? He knows that Canada is in severe economic problems. He knows Canadians are extremely pissed. He knows he has a problem with Alberta, all right? He has to mitigate some of the damage done. Now, he's not going to say that while he was economic advisor, it's his fault. Never going to say that. You know, never going to say that the leftist policies helped contribute to this factor. He's never going to say, well, we're really screwed because the Eurodollar system is just going to wreck Canada. Like, he's never going to say that. It's the truth, but, like, they're never going to say it, all right? The next best thing you'll get is they will mitigate the damage done, all right? Expanding oil and gas in Canada to export it will give us a more flow of dollars, which will help alleviate the problems. Like, if you look at what happened with the GFC, the reason why the GFC didn't completely wreck the Canadian economy like it's going to happen now is because Canada had a consistent, reliable flow of dollars. All right? Those dollars kept coming in no matter what. Like, even when, you know, you had massive US bailouts, you know, you had credit swap lines from the Fed extended to like the ECB and other central banks around the world, Canada was relatively isolated because most of our trade and most of the economy was in US dollars. The problem we have now is that only half of our economy, or I guess it's a quarter of the number they quote, like the 2 point whatever trillion, it's like a quarter or whatever. It's half of the real economy. But the problem is you have to add in the government, which is about half of, again, the number that's thrown around. So, quarter in reality, or quarter in fantasy land where the government counts as GDP. You can make arguments that it does, that it really shouldn't, but that's my opinion. But in reality, it's like half the Canadian economy. So, but you've got this parasitic government half of the economy that you have to deal with. So, and now there's a massive burden that is a siphon of dollars because Carney was like, hey, we need a temporary funding thing, otherwise we're going to run into serious political problems getting a budget through because we ran out of money, or the budget ran out earlier this month, so we were going to basically have a similar situation that the US is having now. But to prevent that, he found a temporary funding measure, which was the sale of US denominated bonds, which now the Canadian government has to go into the market to buy American dollars and then give those dollars to bondholders twice a year, because that is how coupon payments work on bonds, especially government bonds. Then, I believe, I forget, were they 10-year notes or 5-year notes? I'm not entirely sure, but when that time period is up, you have to pay back everything plus all the interest. Like, the coupon payments aren't a deductible. They're a, hey, please, for the love of Jesus, hold on to these notes. You're going to get something everywhere, and you don't just have to hold wait till the end of the term. So, like, Carney's in a hell of a position. The reality of the situation is, you are now in a time frame not like the 2010s where you can, push your crazy, globalist, anti-humanity things, and like the most people are going to ignore it. You have had over a decade plus of that. You have the economy grow rapidly going down the shitter all over the world, all right? And tensions are running higher than they have in a long time. And we just look in North America. I mean, we could zoom in on the United States, or, we could just look at the West. But you have acts of terror being committed by the left on the freaking daily. Well, maybe not daily, but at least weekly, where they are perpetuating violence to enact political change, which is the definition of terrorism. So, acts of terror. All right? He needs something to go his way. The only thing he can do, realistically, is to slowly open up the energy sector in Canada, drive down energy costs. Hopefully, he's smart enough to realize that. He kind of temporarily got that with the setting of the carbon tax on gas to zero. Like, that's probably going to be extended or come back, I would say, within, say, realistically the next 2 years, but like probably you could say like 9 months. Like, it's probably that bad. They'll probably find other ways to tax because they have to service the debt. They're having they're probably going to run into the issues with that. They really shouldn't be worried about that. Should be really worried about Canadians having big issues, especially with the United States saying, hey, you know what? If you become the 51st state, this is going to be good. Now, listen to this. That can never happen. All right? This isn't me saying, oh, that, that's not going to happen for political, because I don't want it to happen or anything, or any bias like that. It legitimately can happen because there are not enough fucking MAGA Republicans in the Senate. So if it went to a House vote, you might be able to sneak it by the House. This U.S. Senate is owned by globalist neocon pieces of garbage. You are not getting anything past them of adopting Canada without, because the Senate is really, really close, without first getting all the other American territories, such as Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, the Virgin Islands. Well, American Virgin Islands. Like, and that's not going to happen because that's a red line for the Republican neocon globalists in the Senate. It's not happening, all right? It politically cannot happen because nobody has, well, Donald Trump might have been able to do it, but he has torched so much of his political capital, he no longer has the political capital to hold the Senate to the proper amount of coals that they need to do it. It's not happening, okay? But that offer is still there, and if Trump offers a robust asylum for right-leaning Canadians, now you could possibly see, if negotiations this week don't go very well, you could very well see Trump throw out there that he will allow certain right-wing Canadians to apply for refugee status, very much similar to what he did with the Boer South Africans, white South Africans population. He's bringing them over. And that would just put Carney in such a position where he'd have no chance. So he's got to get a pipeline to at least mitigate the problems in out west. All right. Get dollars flowing back into the country. He understands enough about the Eurodollar system to understand the importance of the dollar, of the US dollar, because he did something, the US dollar denominated debt. That wasn't the first time he did that. He did that with the Bank of England. Now that's setting the Bank of England up for a problem in a few years, because theirs is going to come due soon, and they're going to have a hell of a time servicing that debt. So is Canada, but the entire reason governments issue debt is to kick that can down the road so that they can continue to exist and they don't have to make any tight, tough decisions that would negatively impact their political station in the country. Yeah, that has some good uses, at least if you're a politician. Anyways, like, Carney has no choice with this pipeline. He has to get it done. And again, laws don't matter for multiple reasons, but also they literally passed a law, okay, that allows the federal government to break every law on the book if it is in favor of doing a national building project that is for national security, which this pipeline fits the definition of, because Danielle Smith is referring this pipeline to that bureaucracy that deals with that. And if that doesn't work, they can just invoke like Section 1 or Section 33 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And if they don't want to do that, they can just fucking do it like they did illegally, freezing Canadians' bank accounts and then treating them as terrorists, which was proven in a court of law. Like, the conservatives out there who are like the law and order thing, like, you people are some of the dumbest motherfuckers out there. Like, I say that knowing, thinking that of the same of communists. When you say law and order to a leftist, all you're going to get is your face bashed in because they couldn't care less. That's who's got the power right now. Now, it's not as powerful as it once was, to be fair, but they still have the governmental power of that. And again, I will reiterate, when has the Canadian government in the last 30 years have they been able to swear on a Bible before God or any other religious text before any other, God, saying, we totally followed the rule of law, we didn't break anything, and they wouldn't get divine retribution immediately? Like, that hasn't happened to my knowledge. I don't think there's a government on earth that could pass that standard. Like, I do not understand people who do not understand that to the government, the laws don't matter. They only ever matter when you're using it against your opponent or when you get caught. Then it matters. But if you don't get caught, or you get caught and it's not a massive scandal, you can just move on with it. Like, we are in the living embodiment of fake it and you will make it. All right? If you don't believe me, go, I think last week I was talking about the economy on Friday. We are like years into Extend and Pretend, where you are faking it and making it in the economy, especially in the context of commercial real estate, which is so far in the hole. If they were to do proper price discovery, it would take down banks. Not just a bank. Banks that are exposed to this shit. And then those banks that are exposed to the banks who are exposed to the commercial real estate would also go down. Like, there is such a large bubble in commercial real estate globally, all right? It will likely cause the next bubble to pop, all right? Like, when eventually that bubble pops, it will most likely be because of commercial real estate. I mean, the real underlying problem will be, jobs, incomes, and the euro dollar. But like what will be sold as this is the problem was commercial real estate extending and pretending and allowing governments or allowing banks to do that. Because the Fed knows about it. Like, specifically, I know for a fact the Fed knows about it because their one meeting notes from like 2023, they were starting to talk about it. They were like, we know banks are never going to pass proper inspection of this shit, and they are doing what is extending and pretending. They had a fancy word for it. We're just gonna let them do it, because if we don't, this is an existential risk to the entire system. So instead of, hey, we have a problem, let's go to the federal government, which is their job, and say, hey, we have a regulatory problem here that is going to crash the system. Because unlike what people believe, that the Fed's job or any central bank's job is like growth and inflation and like, or jobs and inflation, sorry. That may be what's on the book, okay? The real thing is to maintain the status quo of the banking system. Because if that pops, the government is in big trouble. They do not want a repeat of the Great Depression, where you had thousands of banks just out of existence. Can't have that again. Why? Because there's not thousands of banks left, especially in the US. There's like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 at most. It's not like there were 10,000 plus different banks. Lots of regional banks, lots of small banks. Now you've got medium and big ass banks. Like, look here in Canada, there's what, 6? And then you've got credit unions and mortgage companies. Like, because mortgage companies and credit unions, they are banks, but not really, because laws are laws and they're weird with classifications of shit. God. I mean, then you also have investment banks, different kind of banks. So it's just, and then you got like shadow banks, Eurodollar banks. Like, they are banks, but like banks really in name only type deal. Anyways, the pipeline has to happen, is what I'm getting at. All right? Again, from a real politics situation of, if Carney doesn't, he loses the power he has been granted. All right? To the point where there will most likely be a coup in the Liberal Party, and he will be removed. A la Trudeau. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts in my thinking on this. All right? Now, this may change because we may get more information going forward where, Carney is just going to run down the clock and be a one-term prime minister. Okay, sure, fine, dandy, that might happen. But right now, he is in such a desperate spot, and he should have known this going into the PMship, that he would have to compromise his ideology. But then again, his ideology is the only thing that matters is I get power. It's not really compromising his ideology. It's compromising the ideology that he has put forth towards his base, but his base basically has two peanuts clacking together in their heads, so you can kind of steer them wherever. It may just take some time to steer them in the right direction, because, peanuts aren't known for their mental prowess. Anyways, that's the video for today. Jesus, I had an idea and then it left. I was going to say what it was coming up with, and I have no clue. Maybe I'll talk about what happens in Washington between Trump and Carney. I think they start to come to a deal because Carney has to. He's pushed this on long enough. He can probably get a softening from Trump on certain things because Trump actually needs the American economy is in such a position that he needs to say, yeah, we're gonna let the Canadians do this, and this. We've got this really good deal here. I'm the greatest negotiator. You know, all the Trump stuff, that Trump has to do to keep up his public persona. So, like, you'll probably get out of Carney some stupid lie saying Canada's going to invest like, $500 billion over the next 3 years or some shit like that, like all the other countries on Earth are doing, and saying, hey, yeah, we're going to invest all this money. And it's like, what's your GDP? Where the hell are you getting that money from? Oh, you're lying. Gotcha. I gotcha. I'm right there with you. Anyways, that's the end of the video for today. Have a good day. See you in the next one.